Adam, if industrial design were the depths of the North Atlantic, you'd be a swarm of smoked eels.
Ooh. And you, my friend, would be a pickled herring. Welcome to Engineer versus Designer,
The podcast.
for product designers, engineers, makers, geeks, freaks, and people who like the color blue. My name is Adam, industrial designer of CADjunkie.com.
Blue. My name is Josh, mechanical engineer of SolidSmack.com.
Each week's show is broken into 3 crusty baked halves. This week we'll be talking about concept design and the future of customization. First, we'll serve up the top product design stories from this week's news, courtesy of SolidSmack.com.
Followed by techie tips, tricks, and Q&A compliments of CADjunkie.com.
And finally, we'll talk with special guest Rob Wolkers from his studio in The Hague, in the Netherlands, transportation designer and maniacal mixer of industrial design and engineering.
Rob Wolkers, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. If you were a Dutch beer, which one would you be?
Oh, a Heineken, of course.
Okay, Rob, stay put. We'll be hearing more from you as the show goes on. Josh Mings of SolidSmack.com. Speaking of tasty adult beverages, the time has come for you to intoxicate us with the sweet nectar of knowledge. What have you got for us this week?
Right on. This week's Solid Smack Smackfest is brought to you by DriveWorks, automating design and making custom design quick and easy. Their products work directly in the SolidWorks environment and make mincemeat out of repetitive tasks.
Allowing you to generate design configurations on the fly.
That's right. See all the crazy possibilities at driveworks.co.uk.
As you have no doubt heard, the product design world lost an icon this past Wednesday. A lot of kids had sports heroes to awe and inspire them, but ever since about age 12, my idol has been Steve Jobs.
My first computer was an Apple, and while I remember playing Dark Castle with my brother as a kid, watch my own kids now playing Angry Birds, and it's just crazy. Love him or hate him, Steve set out to change the world and succeeded.
If you would like to remember Steve personally, Apple will be setting up a webpage on which you can post those thoughts on his passing, and we'll be sure to link to it on the EvD site.
We actually recorded this episode on Wednesday morning, and when the news broke, we realized that a big part of our conversation with Rob had revolved around Apple products and the impact that Steve's work was having on us, even after he had passed away.
Steve, you will be missed. Thanks a lot, man.
This week, we're talking custom design with Rob Wolkers. The custom design boom has hit, and many are saying it's a design revolution. So everyone from Nike to Smart Car
and our good friend Rob here
are exploring the options to allow you to pick options for the products you desire. In an article at humansinvent.com, David Messers lays it all out, saying we're getting used to a world where we can have everything exactly how we want it. So we like to have unique looking clothes, bags, houses, skin. Does the same apply for gadgets and tech gear?
I don't know. I mean, I have issues with all that. I mean, it's this whole idea, like, people thought that when computer printers first came out, that suddenly publishing was going to end and nobody would want magazines anymore. And obviously, that's BS. People want professionally designed stuff. There's a reason why some people are professional designers and some people do other things. Mm-hmm. And so, not everybody is going to want to design their own cell phone at home.
Yeah, I think it has a big future, especially the sites like Shapeways. It's very interesting what's going on right now, but I don't think it's going to replace professional product development totally.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is things like our sponsor this week, DriveWorks, making available technologies where you can go onto a website and type in some parameters for whatever it is you're trying to buy. And then those files get sent directly to where they'll be manufactured and easily made right from those files. I mean, and when you combine that with rapid prototyping and NC machining and all that stuff, these things get really interesting where you have a professional designer who's actually creating more of an intelligent framework of design constraints and considerations as opposed to a finished, complete, here it is, as it is design. Do you think that changes the way people will think about design as they're working?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with companies like that and rapid prototyping and rapid manufacturing getting cheaper and cheaper, I think we will see that more often. But I still think that people also want to, if they buy a product, they don't only buy a product but also a sort of brand identity. Yeah, for example, the best example is of course Apple, and their all products they look the same. They have the same feeling, the same. If you buy an Apple product, then you not only buying the product itself, the hardware, but also the identity, and you're even joining a community. And if you have a fully customized product, then you don't have that anymore. So I don't think it's going to disappear completely.
I think that's a really interesting point, and particularly the Apple comparison, because Apple really is, in my mind, the antithesis of this whole mindset, in that they offer very few products with very few customizations available. They have a very closed system, but it's beautiful for that reason. Because they close everything off, they're able to control things in such a way that the experience is controllable and beautiful every time. Whereas a more flexible system is better in many ways for a lot of people, but also makes for a more chaotic experience in a lot of cases.
Yes, absolutely. With for example, the scooter I designed, we had some discussions about that as well. Can we accept every design that people want to put on the scooter? Or some scooters will be fairly ugly because everybody has a different taste. And as a company, do you want to have scooters driving around with with prints like that or pictures like that on the side?
Well, it is bringing attention to design in that you're able to customize certain parts of it. I think that's a really neat aspect to it. It's bringing more attention to that. It's showing people the alternatives and different options, whether it's just a skin on the back of an iPhone or it's a completely different case. So, well, that does it for us, folks. Adam, hit the lights.
Don't worry, folks. We got 2 more halves coming at you right after this.
Adam Ahern of CADjunkie.com. What have you got for us this week?
This week's CAD Junkie Q&A is brought to you by DriveWorks, allowing your customers to custom configure your products to their own specifications and having all the necessary SOLIDWORKS files configured automatically.
It's crazy.
It's completely mental. Check it out at driveworks.co.uk.
Hello, engineer versus designer. This is Adam in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I have a question. My friend and I are interested in starting a toy company. Our plan is to draw the toy shapes in a CAD package and then outsource rapid prototyping. We're looking to do something like aquatic toys, kind of like a rubber ducky, but instead of a ducky, maybe an octopus or a cuttlefish. I am pretty well versed in SOLIDWORKS, and I'm having a difficult time drawing the complex organic shapes that one would need to draw in order to produce, for instance, octopus tentacles. And I'm wondering, am I using the right CAD package, or is there something else that I should be using that's far better for these complex organic shapes and complex curves? If you guys could give me a point in the right direction, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, hello, Adam from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thanks so much for calling in. And I want to make a special note to everybody out there in EvD land. We want your questions.
Yes.
If you'd like to hear your question answered on air, call and leave us a message in the U.S. at 310-692-4380.
Or email us a recording of your voice using a voice memo on iPhone, Android, or whatever else you've got around.
Oh, and as a thank you for calling, we're going to be sending Adam a free EvD t-shirt if you want one of those beauties.
And you do.
Send in your questions. Mm-hmm. So, fellas,
yes.
Highly organic shapes for toy design. We've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I think there is a lot more to say on this subject. Obviously, in the past, we've mentioned sub-D solutions like T-splines for Rhino, TS Elements for SOLIDWORKS, or even working with sub-D in Maya and converting that to NURBS right there within Maya. Mm-hmm. And spoiler alert, I think my personal advice to Adam is going to be to seriously consider one of these kinds of solutions for something like an octopus.
Definitely. But that doesn't mean that good old CAD is out of the question. You can build some mad crazy organic shapes in SOLIDWORKS alone, and there are some really powerful advantages to doing that.
Special guest Rob Wolkers, you do a lot of concept design work, some of it very organic. If you were tasked with designing a toy octopus, how would you approach that?
I would definitely consider something like TS Elements or T-splines for Rhino, and then import it into SOLIDWORKS. It depends a bit if you have to put a lot of details or engineering details afterwards in the toy.
Right.
Because SolidWorks is really good for that build.
So when you're suggesting this, are you thinking of the whole process together from conceptualizing it to manufacturing it? Is that why you would choose that route specifically?
Yeah, in that way. Or normally I work, I do a lot of surfacing in SolidWorks as well because it has a big benefit, and that's normally when you have 90% of your product detailed, and then the customer comes to you and says, okay, we need a little change in the shape there and a little change in the shape there. So the shape is never final until you release the file. And if you have to import,
happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have to import and export your files from your surfacing program again, that's just a lot of trouble. And therefore, it's a real time saver if you can adjust your surfacing in SolidWorks and the whole tree updates itself.
I agree completely, and I mean, if I were making a mechanical octopus, then a parametric octopus is absolutely the way to go, and it's going to take a week or two of your time, and you're going to be frustrated as hell while you work it all out. But then in the end of it, you're going to have a very flexible, adjustable model where you can change the size of the motor, and everything updates, and all of the parts move correctly. But
until it blows up on you.
Until it blows up on you, and then you have to make a lot of fixes. This is the world that we live in right now. Surfacing in CAD is arduous. It just is. Yeah. But it's also very powerful.
I would actually try to approach something like this first in Sculptress or Modo.
I wanted to ask that to Rob, actually, by the way. If you were to build something from a mesh sculpting program like Sculptress or ZBrush or something like that, could you see that being useful at all, or is that just totally useless data?
I had some trouble with importing mesh models, and I had to redo a lot of surfacing in SolidWorks. But it depends. It all depends on the import quality of the files. Sometimes you can find a good add-in that imports the files pretty good.
I would definitely think about your process, as Rob has said. Think of it from the conceptual to the manufacturing. You want to be able to make that thing in the end. So my recommendation, get it into Sculptress, ZBrush, a nice mesh modeler. Take the time to figure that out, and then getting it into SolidWorks, or you could go the route with Rhino and T-splines, and then get it into SolidWorks to get you to the manufacturing stage.
Ding, ding, ding. I'm ready for some milk.
That's actually vodka, Adam. Oh, and welcome back. Today we're chatting with Rob Wolkers, industrial designer and founder of Rob Wolkers Product Development.
Today we'll be talking a little bit about conceptual design for manufacturing, and the future of all that kind of stuff.
Rob, we've got a few questions for you.
Okay.
And we promise it's not going to hurt much.
Or at all, really.
So, Rob, first, tell us a little bit about yourself, what started you down this path of engineering and design, and how you got going.
As a kid, I started, of course, I think every industrial designer, with a sketchbook and the building blocks like Lego.
Oh yeah.
So for me, it was pretty obvious to study industrial design after my high school.
When did you find out that industrial design existed?
Yeah, well, that's pretty funny. I started with mechanical engineering, actually. I did that for 1 year, but I really missed the creative side of industrial design.
Engineering's not creative at all.
Yeah, well, it was an advertisement at my university back then of industrial design, and it said it had a picture of a sketchbook and some Lego building blocks on it,
nice.
And it just said, "Are these the toys that you were playing with when you were a kid?" And well, that was a big yes for me.
That's convincing.
So
right on.
Then I immediately switched to industrial design, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. Well, yeah, after my study, I started working for a couple of companies, or I've worked for 2 companies. I started to work as a freelancer as well. Then I was being pretty successful, so I didn't really have time for my day job anymore, and I decided to quit. And so since I think a couple of 3 years ago, I started as a freelance, full-time freelancer.
So now you have your own product development company and focus on full service product design from conceptual design all the way to manufacturing, which is crazy. Do you ever find those things fighting each other, where you're in the conceptual phase and you can't be creative enough because you're too bogged down thinking about manufacturing, or you have trouble doing manufacturable things because your head is up in the clouds thinking about conceptual stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. But on one hand, it's really easy because when you're designing and you can already think about manufacturing, you don't have communication errors with the engineering department or import and export problems. But on the other hand, it's sometimes really difficult, especially when I've been working on a product for 2 weeks and only engineering, and I have to start a new project and it's only the design part to switch my mind to designing, and don't bother myself with the engineering limitations and be creative enough to make something cool.
So it's interesting. You say that, basically you're talking as if you're two people and you need to get one of them to be quiet in order for the other one to work well. And so, I think that's one of the interesting things that comes out of, it's really important to have both an engineering voice and a design voice in the process, even if it's just one person working.
Yeah, I think a lot of my customers really like the fact that for the whole process they have they can talk to one person, and they can discuss the engineering as well in the very beginning of the development phase. And I heard that a couple of times that they really appreciate that. But still it's difficult to split those two parts.
I think what you need is an actual hat. You need an engineering, actual physical hat that you can put on when you're doing engineering, and a different one for design. They can be completely different.
Yeah, something like that, or a designer glasses, or.
Right. You need thick black designer glasses and a fake goatee you can put on.
I should go schizophrenic or.
Right. Well, so I just like to ask one more question about this. You started it on your own, and then eventually you went out on your own. You've been freelancing for quite some time now, or whatever you want to call it. You've been independent. Do you ever struggle with downtime, and what do you do with that when that happens?
It's just you can always develop your own products, and right now I'm also developing with a colleague of mine a product of our own. So that's always one thing you can do. But on the other hand, I'm never bored. The problem is I have too much work.
So, Rob, any last words of advice on developing products for manufacturing?
Well, use the evaluation tools in your CAD package. That can be real money and time saver afterwards. And get your tooling guys involved as soon as possible, because they have years of experience and they can solve what seems to be a very big problem in minutes. I've been there and done that.
No matter how smart you are, ask the professionals. That's right.
There you go.
Rob Wolkers, having you on the show has been even better than the time I spent 3 days and nights floating across the North Sea with only a pair of water wings, a flute, and the starry sky above. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Right on. If you would like to send baskets of beer and flowers to EvD HQ, please address them to Josh.
And if you want to send us boxes of anthrax, please address those to Josh as well.
What?
Engineer versus Designer appreciates all the comments you haven't left yet. In fact, this week we will send an Engineer versus Designer shirt to the first person who writes a comment on our site. Head over there to engineerversusdesigner.com and let her rip. Insults welcome.
And if you desperately want to see us stranded in the Ardennes Mountains with no internet access, be sure to like us, +1 us, follow us, or whatever, as social media has been correlated with a losing touch with civilization entirely. We'll see you next week, and remember, without engineers, designers would make beautiful boats that do not float.
And without designers, engineers We'll probably be happier people. I get all emotional about this stuff.